じゃないです。Okay. 今日は忙しいです。今日は忙しいです。今日は楽しいです。Okay. いいですね。Okay. Any questions about how to put together sentences like that? じゃあ、
Well, I have a question.
はい。
If you wanted to say today was busy and quiet, would you use to? Like a bad word?
No, to doesn't work for connecting anything but nouns. So we'll actually be learning in lessons 6 and 7 of conjugation form that lets you connect two adjectives or two verbs in a sentence, because it's an actual conjugation of whichever one comes first.
If you were to put
Alex had a question.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
So will we learn like to say today is going to be fun or today is going to be busy? Like, is there what we?
Well, yeah, like 今日は忙しいです could be today is busy or today will be busy.
Okay. So it doesn't differentiate between like future tense.
You
and
can
present.
differentiate by adding more information to the sentence. So for example, changing it from 今日 to 今は忙しいです really narrows it down to now is busy. And if you wanted to say that you think that today will probably be busy, 今日は忙しいでしょう. You can take the des and replace it with でしょう, which is like a maybe. And so you're saying it'll probably be this. でしょう is one that they don't actually teach until way at the end of this textbook. But it's a really easy switch to make because anytime you're using des for the future tense, you can switch it out for the shoal, and it just makes it, such and such will probably be true. So even if you're talking about the weather, for example, 明日は寒いでしょう. Tomorrow will probably be cold. Things like that. In fact, if you listen to a Japanese weather report, you will hear the shoal every single time they make a sentence practically, because nobody knows for sure what tomorrow's weather will be like. They're predicting. So when you're predicting, you end with the shoal, pretty much by default. So yeah, a Japanese weather report is, 明日は寒いでしょう, whatever the temperature is going to be, でしょう. This de show, that de show, everything de show. It just keeps going with de show over and over and over, and it gets really funny after a while because you feel like, okay, can they find a different word? But that's just the way you say it if you're predicting a likely future, but there's no way of being definite about it until it actually happens.
Yeah.
So, I sometimes say that Japanese weather reporters are more honest than American ones, because Americans usually say it's going to be, and in Japan it's always de show, will probably be, will most likely be, is what that translates as. Okay?
I have two. When you use totemo, do you
just insert it right before the adjectives.
Okay, that's what I did.
とても忙しいです. 今日はとても難しいです. Whatever adjective you're using, just put a とても before the adjective, and it just makes it very that adjective. So, 今日はとても寒いです or 昨日はとても寒かったです. Right? You can use it. 昨日は暑くなかったです. You'll notice that とても doesn't usually get used with negatives. 今日は寒いです. 今日はとても寒いです. But 今日は暑くないです. とても暑くないです sounds kind of weird. It's very not hot. It's like, huh? So, let's do these, and as we get to we're going to do the ones through first. When we get to the verbs and the adjectives, let's conjugate them before we move on to the next one. So, read it, English meaning, then the conjugations, and then going on. So, 食べる, to eat, 食べます食べません食べました食べませんでした。はい、we're gonna do speed version today. Okay, 行く to go 行きます行きません行きました行きませんでした。飲む to drink 飲みます飲みません飲みました飲みませんでした。見る to see 見る見ます見ません見ました見ませんでした。やる to do やりますやりませんやりましたやりませんでした。聞く to ask 聞きます聞きません聞きました聞きませんでした。乗る to ride 乗ります乗りません乗りました乗りませんでした。出かける to go out 出かけます出かけません出かけました出かけませんでした。 OK 天気 weather 男の人 man 今日 today 山 mountain 川 river 女の人 woman 田中さん Miss 田中山田さん Mr. 山田今 now 私 I 一緒に together oops とても very バス bus 部屋 room 休み day off yeah vacation absence 毎 sheets of things 海 sea 引く ticket 宿題 homework テスト test 飲み物 beverage はい and then はいすごく extremely どんな what kind はい飛行機 airplane yep 航空 flying 旅行 travel まで until 切ってstamp はい surfing 食べ物 food 天気 weather はがき postcard 怖い scary 怖いです怖くないです怖かったです怖くなかったです、はい、楽しい fun 楽しいです楽しくないです楽しかったです楽しくなかったです。 Pick up the pace 暑い hot 暑いです暑くないです暑かったです暑くなかったです、はい、小さい small 小さいです小さくないです小さかったです小さくなかったです、はい、大きい large 大きいです大きくないです大きかったです大きくなかったです、はい、古い old thing 古いです古くないです古かったです古くなかったです、はい、優しい kind or easy 優しいです優しくないです優しかったです優しくなかったです、はい、寒い cold 寒いです寒くないです寒かったです寒くなかったです安い cheap 安いです安くないです安かったです安くなかったですはい moving on 泳ぐ to swim okay so 泳ぎます泳ぎません泳ぎました泳ぎませんでしたはい大丈夫 fine okay 誕生日 birthday はいにぎやかな busy
or lively.
yeah lively bustling busy in the sense of what's happening not like you've got a full schedule right like city. Okay, so, nigiyaka desu, nigiyaka janai desu, nigiyaka deshita, nigiyaka janakatta desu. Right? Daikirai na, to hate, yeah, abhor. So, daikirai desu, daikirai janai desu, daikirai deshita, daikirai janakatta desu. Right? Shizuka na, quiet, yeah. So, shizuka desu, shizuka janai desu, shizuka deshita, shizuka janakatta desu. Right? Kirei na, pretty, kirei desu, kirei janai desu, kirei deshita, kirei janakatta desu. Sumaranai, boring. Sumaranai desu, sumaranakunai desu, sumaranakatta desu, sumaranakuna desu. Notice we shifted gears, not back to eat. And omoshiroi, interesting. Omoshiroi desu, omoshirokunai desu, omoshirokatta desu, omoshirokunakatta desu. Right. Atarashi, new. Atarashi desu, atarashikunai desu, atarashikatta desu, atarashikunakatta desu. Right? Back to na. Genki na, energetic, healthy. Genki desu, genki janai desu, genki deshita, genki janakatta desu. Okay? Hima na, hima desu, hima janai desu, hima deshita, hima janakatta desu. Oh, we forgot to say at the English meeting, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, to have free time.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Daisuki na, to love. Daisuki desu, daisuki janai desu, daisuki deshita, daisuki janakatta desu. Right. Suki na, to like. Suki desu, suki janai desu, suki deshita, suki janakatta desu. Right. Genki na, energetic again. Genki desu, genki janai desu, genki deshita, genki janakatta desu. Right. Kirai na, to hate. Kirai desu, dai kirai desu. Sorry, what? What did I just do? Sorry. Dai,
Yeah.
kirai desu, kirai janai desu, kirai deshita, kirai janakatta desu. Kirai and dai kirai are related terms. You know, it's just adding the kanji for oki in front of kirai. So, yeah. Okay, so back to muzakashi, which is difficult, and it's an e adjective. So muzakashi desu, muzukashikunai desu, muzukashikatta desu, muzukashikunakatta desu. Right? Kakkoi, cool, good looking. Irregular. So kakkoi desu, kakkoyokunai desu, kakkoyokatta desu, kakkoyokunakatta desu. Right? And isogashi, busy, thank you. Isogashi desu, isogashikunai desu, isogashikatta desu, isogashikunakatta desu. Right? いいですね。はい、質問がありますか? Any questions about how to deal with any of those conjugations or how to know which one's which? Okay, so 次やりましょう. Let's look at where we're up to in the textbook. 138ページですね. Okay. 138 page. We're doing part D is where we're starting from, right? That's what we got up to last time. So, I'll have the two Sierras read the question and the answer for the example. Okay, so.
日本語の
クラス
は難しいですか？
はい。
いえ、難しくないです。
Muzukashikunai desu, okay?
難しくない。
Or if you wanted to say yes, you could just read the example so everyone can hear
Oh,
that
okay.
option.
難しくない。難しいです。
Hai. So you've got both options, right? You can use e or hai, muzukashii desu, or ie, muzukashikunai desu. And of course, if it's a na adjective, you're going to conjugate it appropriately for a na adjective, right? So, Shiara-san, you get to ask Tatiana-san ichiban.
今日は暇ですか？
いえ、暇じゃないです。
はい、いいですね。じゃあ2番、asking Dylan.
先生は優しいですか？
優しいです、絶対。
はい、ありがとう。じゃあ、Dylan-san, I'm going to have you ask Marianne because she's kind of in the middle even though she's a row back. So,
3番。
3番。
学校は大きいですか？
Okay. はい、大きいです。はい、いいですね。じゃあ4番、you're reading that one to Andrea-san.
部屋はきれいですか？いえ、今はきれいくないです。
きれい what? きれい
じゃないです。
There you go, because it's actually a not adjective, even though it's disguising itself, right? Okay, so 部屋はきれいじゃないです. I like the way you put in the ima. That's, you know, good qualifier, because I'm sure it's beautiful
Yeah, I
sometimes.
have to say.
今はきれいじゃないです. はい、じゃあ5番どうぞ. You're asking Alex.
Okay. 日本の食べ物はおいしいですか？
おいしいですか?
はい、美味しいです。
はい、いいですね。じゃあ6番どうぞ.
クラスは面白いですか？
さん
面白いです。
はい、面白いです。That works. じゃあ7番 you're asking you.
宿
宿題
題は難しいですか？
難しいですか? はい。
はい、とても難しいです。
はい、いいですね。じゃあ8番、タティアナさん。
あなたの町は、am I reading this right?
いや、あなたの町は
町は静かですか？
はい、静かです。
はい、いいですね。質問がありますか? Any questions about those? はい。じゃあ、Part E, we'll let Tatiana-san to Dylan-san. Oh, well, actually, Tatiana-san, you're just going to read the example for us.
It's just that one.
Just the whole thing, yeah.
Okay.
So, きれいな.
Oh, きれいな友達の部屋はきれいです。でも、私の部屋はきれいじゃないです。
Hi. So, do you see what they're doing here? They're making a contrast. The first sentence is a positive statement about something or someone that is that adjective. And then they're doing demo, however, and making a second statement in the negative using that same adjective about some other person or place or thing that's not that. Does that make sense? So in this case, they're contrasting the friend's room and their own room, right? 友達の部屋はきれいです。でも、私の部屋はきれいじゃないです。Make sense? So Dylan-san, you get to do that with 一番面白い.
The same thing.
So two things, one that is interesting and one that's not interesting. It doesn't matter if your negative sentence or your positive sentence is first, but they should be two sentences that have a contrast with demo starting the second sentence to make the contrast. Right.
I went for the same thing pretty much. 友達は面白いです。でも私は面白くないです。
あー、寂しいですね。
あー
That's so sad. じゃあ、2番 No idea? Okay, Andrea さん。Go ahead.
今日の天気はいいです。でも明日の天気は良くないです。
Okay. And based on what we were talking about before, you would say 良くないでしょう.
Yeah.
Probably not good.
She
Yeah.
knows. She's missed for sure.
Yeah. Or if you wanted to put it in the past tense, you could say 昨日の天気は良くなかったです. That's possible too. Okay. じゃあ、Alex さん、3番.
So I just say something.
Something is
expensive.
quite,
Oh, what am I doing?
you're doing quite
Quite.
scary. So something is scary and something is not scary. So it could be as simple as この映画 and あの映画. This movie's scary, that one's not, or whatever, or it
Yeah, I was
could be
thinking
whatever else
something
you
like
want.
that. Sorry, この映画は、怖いです。でも、あの怖い、あの映画は怖くないです。
はい、よくできました。はい、いいですね。じゃあ、4番、そうか。おいしい. So it could be any two foods, one that you think is delicious, one that you think is not. Or even just この食べ物、あの食べ物 kind of thing. Okay, taco はおいしいです. You like octopus?
I thought that was, never mind. I was trying to say taco.
Mexican
Never mind.
food is
Okay.
tacos.
Tacos.
In katakana, taco
Yes.
is Japanese for octopus.
Uh,
So, yeah, be careful which one you order in Japan.
Okay, so then the negative is,
So, おいしい desu would be it's delicious, right?
Yeah.
So, what are you going to say is delicious?
how do I say, okay. Tacos.
Tacos はおいしいです. Okay, and then でも something you don't like the taste of.
Taco.
Okay, that works. Taco. Taco.
Taco.
は
おいしいじゃない。
おいしくおいしくないです。おいしくないです。タコスはおいしいです。でもタコはおいしくないです。Yeah, that works, right? If you like Mexican tacos but you don't care for octopus, that works. That's a good contrast to do two words that sound similar, but they're not the same thing, right? じゃあ、
このカバンは高いです。でもペンは高くないです。
perfect. はい。このカバンは高いです。でも、このペンは高くないです。ですね。じゃあ、タティアナさん、かっこいい。
私の日本語の先生はかっこいいです。
あ
でも私のケミストリーの先生かっこよくないです。
あ、先生はかっこよくないです。
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, I forgot the wa. Okay, and chemistry would be 科学 if you want to put that in Japanese. 科学の先生はかっこよくないですか？
wrecked things.
じゃあ、つるんさん、7番ですね。
それはお父さんは元気じゃないです。お母さんは
でも
Well, I was going to do it in the form of a question.
Okay.
お母さんは元気ですか? So,
Oh, okay.
so father's not well, but is
What about
well.
mother? Okay, that works too.
Mix it up.
はい。じゃあ、アンドレアさん、今。
私の友達は今です。でも私は今じゃないです。
はい、いいですね。私も。私も今じゃないですね。じゃあ、any questions about how to do those kinds of sentences? じゃあ、part F. じゃあ、マリアンさん、you want to read the example for us? Part F.
テストは図が難しいくらいです。優しいです。
はい。So does everyone understand what that means? And so again, they're doing a contrast. テストは難しくないです。It's not difficult. 優しいです。It's easy. Right? So they're doing opposites this time. Two adjectives that are opposites. The negative of one and the positive of its opposite. いいですか? So, and in some of these cases, we might not know the opposite of the word. So if you want to do a positive and a negative of two that aren't true opposites, that's okay too. Some of them we just don't have the opposite for. They didn't teach us yet. じゃあ、アレックさん、1番お願いします。
私は、忙しくないです。
We have the opposite.
Yeah.
I just say 暇です。
はい、今です。Yeah, you don't have to repeat the subject because it's the same subject for both sentences.
Okay.
はい、じゃあ、シエラさん、2番。私の町 meaning my what? What's machi? Who remembers machi? Town, yes. So my town, as in Melbourne or Titusville or wherever you live.
私の町は
No, that's Isurashi refers to people. If you want to say that the town has a lot going on, you would use Nigiyaka. Okay. Nigiyaka just, and then the opposite of Nigiyaka for towns would be Shizuka.
私の町 That one you said, please?
Shizuka.
Shizuka desu.
Shizuka. So, watashi no machi wa nigiyaka desu, shizuka janai desu. Right? It's lively, it's not quiet, or the reverse. You could say watashi no machi wa nigiyaka janai desu, shizuka desu. Right? Because those are opposites, so it's one, not the other. You see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So, which did you want to say?
The second one is negative.
Yeah, we're doing a positive and a negative and they're opposites, right? So, I'm still confused, which one are you
Sorry.
trying to say? So you're talking about Melbourne or whichever town. So, watashi no machi wa, are you trying to say that it's lively or not lively?
Lively, I think.
It is lively, okay, so watashi no machi wa nigiyaka desu. And then the negative would be shizuka janai desu. Okay? じゃあ、石原さん。So, 私の部屋。
Wait,
No,
what?
no,
I was like,
no, I'm sorry, I skipped one.
I
私
was
の
like,
隣
is
の
that the
人。
one that I mentally practiced?
Ah, okay. 私の隣の人は。
私の隣の人は怖いく、no, 怖くな
怖く
く
な
ないい
で。
ですす。Dang it. I practiced it and I still got it bad. Alright, and then 優しいです。
はい、いいですね。怖くないです。優しいです。
We
That
don't have
works.
the adjective to call people old yet, so I couldn't say that.
Right, yeah.
I wanted to. I was gonna do it, but I was like, no, not used for
Yeah,
people.
well, we don't have young either, so. But 怖いです、怖くないです、優しいです. That works, you know, not scary, kind. Right? Okay.
Okay, for this one,
Right.
I'm gonna use like two separate adjectives, so do I have to, for the second one, do I have to like say the whole sentence again? Or
If it's the same subject, you don't need to repeat
the whole?
the whole thing, you just, you know, but we're still trying to do the contrast, one negative, one positive, so.
Okay, cause I was gonna say it's not clean, but I don't know the one for dirty, so
Yeah.
so I was gonna say it's not clean and it's not clean and it's small.
Okay,
Yeah.
that works.
Okay, 私の部屋は綺麗じゃないです。小さいです。
Hi, okay, that works for now, since we don't have opposites for that. Yep.
Could you say hewa samui desu? Like,
Okay.
does that just refer to the weather, or could it be the room as well?
The room could be cold, yeah, the feeling in the room, yeah, that's kind of like, it's not weather exactly, but the weather in the room.
Yeah, that's
You know,
what I was
that's not what
wondering.
it is.
Alright, so I guess I have
Right.
Tokyo.
Hi,
Tokyo wa nigiyaka desho. Never actually been there. So, shizuka janai desho.
はい、いいですね。Okay, 質問がありますか? Okay, so, let's see, Mariam-san, do you want to try?
I can
making-
try.
Okay.
Hawaii wa Nanashkunai.
楽しくないです?
Nanashkunai.
Not fun?
Oh, no, I wanted to say that it is fun.
Okay, so 楽しいです.
楽しいです。
楽しい。
楽しい。
はい、楽しいです。
楽しいです。
はい。
ハワイは楽しいです。
はい。You trying to say not boring? Or,
Fun.
yeah, well, we did fun. Now, the contrast would be a negative of something that's like the opposite of fun, so not boring works.
Right. So it would be.
Okay, tsumaranai is boring, so tsumarana kunai desu.
つまらなくないです。
はい、そうですね。Okay, everybody got that? Okay, じゃあ、part 2, we get to get into 高かったです past tense phrasing. Okay, Andrea-san, why don't you read the 2 examples for us?
高かったです。元気な元気でした。でした。
Hi. Hi. So again, this first one should go pretty quick. We're just doing the, you know, read the plain form and then tell us the past affirmative. That's all we're doing for now. So Alex-san, 1番.
So, yasukata desu.
はい、安かったです。はい、シアさん。暑い、そう、暑かったです。暑かったです。はい、暑かったです。はい、
寒かったです。
寒かったです。Don't leave off the next letter. It's only the
Yeah.
E that changes. Okay, 寒かったです。Yeah, some of them that end in an U sound, if there's like a T or an S sound, those tend to lose their vowel a little bit before the ku and kata, but only the T's and S's tend to lose their vowels. and only if it's she or su or su. I think those are the only ones that tend to lose their vowel sounds before K's. Okay. Okay, so atsukatta desu, and what were we up to? Samukatta desu. Okay, Tatiana-san?
面白かったです。
はい、面白かったです。はい。
Sumaranai changes to sumaranakatta desu.
はい。マリアンさん、try 忙しい。
忙しい、忙しかったです。
はい、そうですね。忙しかったです。アンジェラさん。
楽しかったです。
はい。アレクさん、irregular。
かっこよかったです。
It's just E. It's not かっこいい. So E changes to
よかった
はい。よかったです。よかったです。
よかったです。
よかったです。There are two different adjectives. E です。It's good. よかったです。It was good. かっこいいです。It's good looking or it's cool. かっこよかったです。It was good looking or cool. See, the reason I talk about those two together all the time is because they conjugate the same way, because かっこいい is actually a compound word. The かっこ part is actually a noun that has become a compound word. E is the good part. かっこ is like form, shape. So it's like got a good form, a good shape. Okay, does that make sense? So that's why
Yes,
the
it-
E still conjugates the same way, regardless of whether it's got かっこ attached or not, but they are two separate meanings.
Yeah.
Make sense? じゃあ、シエラさん。
静かでした。
はい、静かでした。No adjectives have their own style. はい
Okay.、
にぎやか。
にぎやかでした。
はい、にぎやかな、にぎやかでした。はい、きれいな。
綺麗でした。
はい、and then
暇な暇でした。
はい、いいですね。Any questions about those guys? じゃあ、マリアンさん、we're back to you if you could read the examples for us for G.
安い、
はい、
安くなかったです。
はい、
暇な、
じゃあ、
じゃあ、暇じゃなかったです。
はい. Okay, so everybody sees the contrast, right? The E adjectives, drop the E, change it to ku, and then add nakatta desu. The na adjectives, you drop the na and put in a ja, and then end with nakatta desu. Okay, じゃあ、アレクさん、1番。
高くなかったです。
はい。2番。Oh, did we skip Andrea
Wait,
san?
yeah.
I'm sorry. Okay, I'll let her do number 2.
楽しくなかったです。
はい、楽しくなかったです。じゃあ、シエラさん3番。
やし
優しい。
優しい。
ね
優しいなか
優しくなかったです。優しくなかったです。Say it one more time.
優しくなかったです。
はい。Gotta make sure you're not leaving out any syllables. We need them all. はい。じゃあ、
つまらないつまらくなかったです。
wait. つまらなくなかったです。
Don't drop the
Don't drop that na. That na is important to keep.
Yeah.
つまらなくなかったです。
I know I'll write it right, but
Yeah, but pronouncing it is a different story, right?
Mhm.
So what you do with those long ones like that is you first write it out carefully. So you make sure you've got all the parts that you need. And then you practice saying it slowly first until you get comfortable with it and pick up the pace gradually. So first you can break it apart really small, like tsumara naku なかったです, right? And then つまらなくなかったです. つまらなくなかったです. つまらなく I can't even say it fast. つまらなくなかったです. Okay, so you speed it up gradually. Okay, you might need, yeah, right. Yeah, tell your friends, hey, I've got this Japanese tongue twister. Want to try it? So yeah, so you really like slow it way down, just like you were doing tongue twisters. Slow it way down first and gradually build up your speed. You know, you might have to say it 20 times slowly first before you're ready to start speeding up the pace. That's okay. Just practice it a bunch of times until you're ready to move on. Okay, so つまらなくなかったです。じゃあ、タティアナさん。
大きくなかったです。
はい、大きくなかったです。はい。
E changes to 良くなかったです。
はい、良くなかったですね。はい、じゃあ、7番、マリアさん、another long one.
忙しくなかったです。
はい、忙しくなかったです。いいですね。じゃあ、アンドレアさん。
かっこよくなかったです。
かっこよくなかったです。Remember, the E part changes to よく。Okay? One more time.
かっこよくなかったです。
はい。じゃあ、アレクさん、2番。9番 rather. I'm looking at the knee. にぎやか。
にぎやかじゃなかったです。
はい。
静かなかったです。
No, 静かじゃなかったです。Remember, you're dropping the na adjective, and then you're adding じゃなかったです。Okay, so 静かじゃなかったです。
静かじゃなかったです。
はい、静かじゃなかったです。It's important that you get that じゃ in the right spot. はい。
綺麗じゃなかったです。
はい、きれいじゃなかったです。And it's very important when you're memorizing your new vocabulary, if it's a na adjective, memorize it with the na so that you always know, oh, that's a na adjective. Because きれいな, 嫌いな, and 大嫌いな are deceptive, right? But if you memorize them with the na on there, then you'll remember more easily which way you're supposed to conjugate them. Because you've got a na to drop, right? Okay, so きれいな、きれいじゃなかったです。ね、タティアナさん。
元気じゃなかったです。
はい、いいですね。はい、質問。
Are there more E adjectives than non-adjectives, or are they all around?
There are a lot of both, but there are only a very few that are not adjectives that happen to end with an E letter.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
So that helps.
Yeah.
I think other than kirei, kirai, dai kirai, tokui is the only other one I can think of
Alright.
offhand that is ending with an E, tokui na. But other than that, usually the na adjectives end in something other than a freestanding E before the na. So even if you didn't have the na there, you'd probably be able to conjugate it properly. But having the na on the end makes it really easy to remember, oh yeah, that's a na adjective. Even if it's like genki na and stuff like that, it also helps you differentiate it from nouns and verbs and other things, right? Because only na adjectives have that na ending that can break off or stay on. See what I'm saying? You know, I can't think of any nouns offhand that end with a na sound, but if they do, it's not a break off piece like in a na adjective. You see what I'm saying? Okay. So, looking at the next activity. So now we're going to use these in past tense sentences. So part C, Robert wrote down about his trip to Okinawa. So he went to Okinawa, he came back from Okinawa already, and now he's telling us about Okinawa. Okay, he's telling us about the past because he's telling about his trip. So we're going to do past positive and or past negative, depending on what the sentence tells you. Okay, so starting with the example, Okinawa was hot. Dylan-san?
沖縄は暑かったです。
Hi. Okay, and Maria-san, Ichiban, the food was not expensive.
What's the word for not expensive?
Expensive is takai.
Okay.
Yeah. So you convert that to the negative past.
食べ物
Tabemono, particle
wa.
wa, there you go. Tabemono wa
食べ物は高かったです。
takakatta desu would be was expensive.
高くない。
Yeah, takakunai desu would be is not expensive. So takakuna,
高くなかったです。
there you go, takakunakatta desu. That's that, you remember what we talked about with that's why we do the grid sometimes. Takai, takakunai, right? Takakatta, takakunakatta. So if you really break it down, you've got your E, right? E changes to ku, and then it adds nai, or it changes to katta to make the simple past. And then if it's changing to the negative past, you've got the ku, you've got the na, and then the E on the end of the na changes to katta because that's the past tense ending. You see that? And of course, you add des to all of these if you're being formal. Dropping the des actually drops it down a big level from neutral polite to casual talking to my friends. Okay, so we'll talk more about casual speech in later chapters, but having des versus dropping des makes it a huge step down. It really makes a difference between polite enough to talk to your sensei versus casual enough to talk to your best friend. And the in-between space in there tends to be the habit of sort of dropping the des sometimes and not dropping it other times for like friends that you're not as close with or acquaintances. Maybe you use the des 90% of the time. You know, friends that you're getting to be closer with, the percentage gradually drops as the friendship improves.
Gradually testing the waters, see
Yeah.
if this is okay as I say this.
Yeah, if I say it this way, does it sound rude or does it sound okay now? You know, and as a non-native speaker, you kind of base it off of how much the other person is doing, you know, because you don't really know. Stuck to my face. Okay. You don't really know as a non-native speaker what's appropriate unless the other person starts modeling it for you. Okay, so, 食べ物は高くなかったです. Make sense? Okay. So, Andrea-san, 2番.
食べ物は美味しかったです。
はい。3番、Alex-san.
ホテルは大きくなかったです。
はい、そうですね。
ホテルは新しかったです。
はい、そうですね。Andrea-san.
レストラン。レストランは
静かな。
静かな
静かじゃな
じゃなくないです。
じゃなかったです。
Dang it,
じゃ
I'm
な
not.
かったです。
じゃなかったです。
はい、静かじゃなかったです。はい、じゃあ、竹中さん。
海
サーフィンは面白かったです。
はい、いいですね。質問がありますか？ Any questions about how to do the negative past or the positive past for any of those guys? I'm just checking my time because. Okay. じゃあ次. Okay, still talking about Okinawa. Okay, now we're turning it into a sort of dialogue format. Okay, so let's see. Dylan just did that one. So we're gonna let Maria-san do role A, reading the example, and Andrea-san is gonna do role B, reading the example. We'll go around the room like that.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, 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 ni, Okinawa, is that right?
Yeah, Okinawa. Yep.
Yes, yasumi ni Okinawa ni ikimashita.
はい。
そうですか？どうでしたか？
とても暑かったです。
はい、そうですね。Any questions about how that format's gonna work? So whoever is doing the role A, you're going to make a past tense sentence about what you did. The other person is just going to make the comment, そうですか? Really? どうでしたか? How was it? And then you're going to use whatever adjective you want to use in the past tense to say it was とても whatever.
Well, it says there what actually you're supposed to be doing.
Oh yeah, it gives you,
You don't have to say totemo.
oh yeah, it gives you the adjective to use. Yeah. I didn't, oh yeah, and some of them don't necessarily use とても. Okay, Ciara, you had a question?
Oh, I was asking how you wanted us to write this, but I figured it out, so you're good.
Okay.
Let
Okay.
your tongue to me.
Okay,
Andrea,
okay. So, Andrea-san, you get to do ichiban with Alex.
映画を見ました。
はい. Oh, and they're putting in either yasumi ni during the break, or you could say like kino, or shumatsu ni, whatever time period you want to put it into, so.
先週映画を見ました。
はい.
そうですか。どうでしたか。
怖いでした。
Okay, how do you do past tense? Kawaii is what kind of adjective?
怖くです。Wait.
Kawakunai would be the negative, but what's the past tense? Kawa.
怖かったです。
There you go. Kawakatta desu. I know, it takes practice. That's why we're practicing. Hi, Alex-san, you get to do Niban with Ciara desu.
So this one is telling me uchi ni iru.
Yeah, you were in the house. Uchi ni iru means to stay at home. So past tense of that would be
Uchi ni ikatta, or
it's a verb. Iru is a verb.
Ikimashita.
No, that's iku changes to ikimasu. Iru is a ru verb. So iru changes to
Oh, existed at the
Oh,
house.
wait, so the
imasu.
imasu.
Yeah. You remember that one?
Mm.
Imasu and arimasu, remember those? So uchi ni imasu is literally, like you said, exists in the house. Okay, so time frame, and then uchi ni imashita.
Uchi ni imashita.
Yeah, so put a time frame on it, the past tense. Kino or yasumi ni or whatever.
Right, so I would say kino, uchi ni imashita.
はい、いました。はい。
そうです。そうですか。どうでしたか。
はい。
つまらなくなかった。
つまらなかったです。
つまらなかったです。
はい、very boring. つまらなくなかった would be, it wasn't boring. So つまらなかったです。It was boring. とてもつまらなかったです。It was very boring. Okay. じゃあ、Siennaさん, you get to do 3番 with Sierraさん.
That's my favorite time. Okay. 休みに。
休みに、はい。
パーティーに、I don't know how to say that. Good like to though.
To go is 行く. So past tense to go is
行きました。
はい。
So 休みにパーティーの
パーティー
に
はい。
行きました。
はい。And so you're
Oh.
asking her,
Oh,
really,
sorry.
how was it?
そうですか。どうですどうでしたか？
はい。And then it says not fun. So
楽しくなかったです。
はい。楽しくなかったです. Does that work for everybody? You understand? はい。じゃあ、シェルキンさん。
休みにレストランに行きました。
はい。さん
そうですか。どうでしたか？
美味しくなかったです。
はい。美味しくなかったです. 残念ですね. That's too bad.
I know. Like I was.
Oh, you go to an imaginary restaurant and it's not even good.
I know, this is awful. What is my life?
Okay, Tatiana-san, why don't you make one up to ask?
For Kino, we don't have to say what after you.
Right, after kino, you don't need a wa.
Kino, アルバイトに行きました。
そうですか。どうでしたか？
つまらなかったです。
はい、つまらなかったです. いいですね. Any questions about how we do those? Okay. So we've got some time left, so we can move on to part 3. So, Dunan-san, I'm going to let you read the example for A.
So about the toke, say 高いtoke ですね.
Hi. So notice what just happened. Where did we put the adjective up until now? At the end of the sentence, right? And because it was at the end of the sentence, it conjugated, right? So if you meant past tense, you had to conjugate the adjective into the past tense. If you wanted negative, you had to conjugate the adjective into the negative, right? Now what are we doing? Where are we putting the adjective? In front of the noun, right? So if we needed to conjugate it, if we wanted to say it was an expensive watch instead of it is an expensive watch, you know, ima, you know, it says 高い時計ですね. It's an expensive watch. It looks pricey, right? Look at that price tag. Okay? But, you know, if somebody comes along and smashes it with a hammer, then you would say it was an expensive watch, right? And so how would you change it in this case? Because you can't conjugate it before the noun. So,
Break it?
takai toke deshita. So the des is what conjugates in the case of the adjective coming before the noun and the des being the end of the sentence. Okay, does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, but what's the difference? I mean, as far as, you know, someone who's speaking it, you could say toke wa takai desu ne. I mean, you
Yeah,
could say that.
versus
same.
takai toke desu ne.
Yeah. Is
What's
there
the
a
difference
choice?
between it's an expensive watch, isn't it? Or that
Expensive.
watch is expensive, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it's the two, the two are very similar, right? The difference is between, you know, whether you want to put more emphasis on toke or on takai. Takai toke desu ne. It's an expensive watch. Or toke wa takai desu. The watch is expensive.
Yeah.
Okay? That's the only difference. that, and of course, grammatically speaking, if you're putting it into the past or the negative, you have to think about how you're conjugating it, if you're conjugating it, right? Hi.
For any of these, like what, like, none of them seem like they're actually like a past tense thing at all, like they presently have.
Yeah, for now, they're just doing present tense.
Alright, so like none of the things, like, we don't actually have to conjugate for this.
Right, we don't have to conjugate, they're just having you practice putting the adjective in front of the noun, and notice
You're just letting us know that if you want to conjugate it, you have to
Yeah.
do the test.
it, and the way I think of it with Japanese is to connect certain things, you need glue, okay? The verbal glue to connect an adjective to the noun is either the E ending on the adjective, if it's an E adjective, or the na ending if it's a na adjective. So you actually keep the na in there if it's a na adjective. That's the glue that connects it to the noun when it comes in front. Okay, so takai tokei desu ne. You just keep the E together. You keep the E there, you don't change it to anything, right? Okay, if it's an old hotel, right, that looks like an old hotel, it's got vines crawling all the way up up to the roof. So how you put that together, an old hotel. Yeah, so Marianne-san, you want to do ichiban?
古いホテルですね。
はい、古いホテルですね。Okay. So it looks like it's a boring TV show there, Andrea. So,
つまらないテレビですね。
はい、そうですね. Okay, it looks like we've got difficult homework to do on 3番.
難しい宿題ですね。
じゃあ、Sierra-san, we've got a busy person here. 忙しいですね。はい、忙しい人ですね。じゃあ5番, the person with lots of free time.
Oh, I was just gonna say boring, but.
Bored. Yeah, well, she looks bored, but it's because she has too much free time on her
Okay,
hands.
so.
Boring means like she's not fun to be around.
She never does anything.
Hibana hito desu ne.
はい、暇な人. Okay, now this machi seems to have a lot going on, Tatiana-san, so,
賑やかな街ですね。
はい、にぎやかな街です。はい、
綺麗な部屋ですね。
はい、きれいな部屋ですね. So does everybody kind of get the concept of how you can put the adjectives in front of the nouns? It's actually the easier thing to do, really.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to worry about any of those conjugations. Right? Okay, job. Part B, answer the questions given using the given cues. So, example, let's see, let's have Marianne-san to Andrea-san do the Q&A for the example. Marianne?
Yeah.
That's
sure.
Mary.
Um,
Mary-san wa
oh, okay, sorry.
example, so Mary-san.
Mary-san wa donna hito desu ka?
はい、どんな人ですか? What kind of person is she? So Andrea-san, you're reading the answer.
メアリさんは優しい人です。
はい、優しい人です. So notice どんな人, what kind of person. Therefore, you're putting the adjective in the same place where the donna was. Remember that rule of thumb that if you have a question word in the question, you take out the question word, insert the word that answers that question, and the rest of the sentence structure can stay exactly the same, right? Remember that rule? Okay. じゃあ、Andrea-san gets asked Alex-san.
スーさんはどんな人ですか？
スーさんは大嫌い人です。
person?
Wait.
No, she's supposed to be,
Kirei.
kirei na hito desu. You don't need a dai.
Oh,
Yeah.
beautiful would be dai kirei.
No,
That
just
doesn't work like
kirei.
that. Okay, just kirei. Okay.
Yeah, dai kirai is hated, but dai kirai, but kirei na hito desu.
What did
Yeah.
Sue do to you?
Kirei na hito desu. Yeah, kirei just translates as pretty or
Okay.
beautiful. It doesn't
Okay.
need a dai on it. Yeah, that doesn't really get used that
So
way.
let me try this one more time.
Okay,
スーさんはきれい人です。
kirei na.
きれいな人。
Hai, kirei na hito desu. So on the na adjectives in this structure, you always need to keep the na in there as the connection between the adjective and the noun. Okay? Just like when we were doing noun modifying another noun, we had a no. That was the necessary connection between the two, right? For na adjective, na is the necessary connection between the two. Make sense?
Yeah.
Sienna-san? Oh, he's asking you the question, sorry.
ロバートさんはどんな人ですか？
Roberto さん
Roberto-san は
はRoberto さんははい面白い
面白い。
面白い人です
はい、面白い人です。じゃあ3番 you get to ask.
たかしはたかしさんは
たけしさん。
たけしさんはどんな人ですか？
たけしさんは元気なんです。あ、元気な人です。
はい、元気な人です。いいですか? Everybody getting the idea? Right. Just checking on time because I saw other people walking, but it's not. Yeah, that clock is just dead.
Incredible.
Hi.
What is that?
Yeah. Hi. Okay, so let's look at part 4 for just a few minutes. So, Sierra-san, you get to read example A, and Tatiana-san's going to answer you.
Alright. 魚が好きですね。好きですか?
はい、好きですか? And then you've got 4 different possible answers there. Yeah, so go ahead and start with just
All of them.
好きです
hai or hai
or
大好き
大好き
で
です
Okay, so hai can go with either ski desu or daisuki desu, right? Or you could do
いえ、きれいです
kirai desu
嫌いです
or ie
Dai
dai
kirai
kirai
desu.
desu, right? Or if you wanted to go somewhere in between,
You could do
you could do something like ie suki janai desu. Or you remember amari? Amari suki janai desu. Ie amari suki janai desu. I don't like it all that much. Sounds a lot softer and less like hypercritical to use
say, do I like
amari suki janai desu. I don't like it all that much, as opposed to daikirai desu. I despise it utterly, you know, or you can say zenzen suki janai desu. I don't like it at all. It's still politer than saying kirai desu. Kirai desu is super strong, and I really don't like that they teach it to you without explaining that it is so strong you have to be careful of how you use it. Okay? Going around saying kirai desu about stuff really does come across as rude in Japanese culture. So you want to be careful. It's safer to go with things like ie amari suki janai desu. And then if you really, really, really can't stand it at all, you can get your point across without sounding rude with amari suki janai desu or zenzen suki janai desu. You know. So that's just safer. But kirai desu and daikirai desu are for things that you hate so much but hopefully you find out ahead of time that the other person doesn't like it either, so they're not offended by it, okay? When you say it that strongly, it can come across as offensive if you're not, if you're not sure that, how the other person feels about it.
So there's
Okay.
plenty of safe alternatives to
Yeah.
use instead of KI.
Right, and then the other option, if you have no strong feelings about it one way or the other, you can say skidemo kiraidemo naides. That's the asterisk at the bottom of this exercise there. If you don't particularly like it or dislike it, you're truly just neutral or indifferent or don't have a strong opinion, you can say skidemo kiraidemo naides. Okay?
You wanna talk about these?
Okay, yeah, very briefly, if anybody wants to take one of these, either for themselves or if you go someplace on campus, you wanna post it. This is the information flyer about the, coming trip for next winter. It's actually December of 2016. I honestly do not know what the requirement is on that. There is a number here to call for more information, the professor leading the group. And if we get enough people registered, he has invited me to be the co-chaperone for the trip. If we get enough people to allow for 2 teachers to go. We have to, I think we have to have,
No.
we have to have like a minimum of 12 people signed up, I think, for me to be able to go with on the trip. So if enough people from my classes are interested, hopefully we'll get that number.
Yeah, I was gonna go, but I can't go now, so my spot's open.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, you wanna do what you can.
Yeah, I can't go now.
Yeah. And
I talked to him, I don't think there's an age requirement for that, it's just,
Yeah.
like,
Sign
it's
a
pretty much
release.
like anybody can go, but also you have to like sign up for the class too.
Yeah, you have to take
Yeah,
the
you got to for the
course,
class.
and, you have to pay for the course, or, you know, if you're doing
Pay for the
enrollment,
trip.
you know,
Yeah.
you don't have to worry about that part, but you have to be able to pay for the trip. I do believe that because it's 4 credit, if you've got student aid, I think you can use that toward the cost of the trip itself, not just the course, but I don't know for sure. So if you've got financial aid, talk to somebody about that question before you just say, oh, I can't afford it and don't go. Okay? I believe student loan, grant money can be applied. At least partially. At least partially. I don't know exactly what the rules are on